So in this video, we will look at the family Ursidae, which are bears. Bears are, you've probably figured out by this point in the year, my favorite group of animals. A couple things about bears. They are large carnivorous mammals. There's 8 living species of bears. Most bears are omnivorous. However, there is one that is strictly herbivorous, that is the giant panda, and one that is mostly carnivorous, that's the polar bear. All the other bears are somewhere in between. Most bears live in the northern hemisphere, though there is one species found in South America, the spectacled bear. They have large bodies, long snouts that they're known for. We'll get into that in a little bit. They have something called plantigrade paws. Plantigrade just means that the whole paw is on the ground as opposed to just the toes, like a dog, or even the very tips of the toes, like a deer and other ungulates. We are plantigrade mammals as well. Just to give you an idea, they have usually large, unretractable claws. Most bears are solitary. They don't come in contact with other bears except during courtship and mating, and obviously during nursing as well. They are the most solitary of all carnivores, and they typically just live alone until it comes time to mate. They are usually used as a symbol of strength in art and mythology and even in film. This is taken from Fox and the Hound. I was terrified of this movie as a kid because of this. Usually, in a lot of films, you'll see bears used as kind of a rite of passage or an ultimate adversary. And there's a lot of, I mean, you could go on and on about bears in film and bears in art, but we'll just stop there. So, a little bit about bear evolution. So, bears share a common ancestor with, of course, this picture on the right, you see share a common ancestor with all carnivores, of course, but then you have dogs group branching off from bears and other similar kinds of animals. Most recently, they share a common ancestor with seals and mustelidae, which are like weasels and raccoons and badgers and some different things like that. Mostly, the idea is that the first bears were probably similar to a badger, really small or smaller in diet and in form, but then probably what changed for bears were was the Asian land bridge, and some of these species crossed the bridge and then came to this part of the world, and that's where you have some of those first larger bears. Of course, in Asia, still you have the giant panda and the sloth bear, the sun bear. The spectacled bear is a South American species, but these bears that we are more familiar with, of course, the Asian black bear in Asia, these northern hemisphere bears, North America. And so you can see here the panda bear is more of a distant cousin to these other bears, the spectacled bear too, and these other bears kind of all coming off of a similar kind of trajectory. Bears are sexually dimorphic as far as size. This is a great picture of the male on the left, the female on the right. The male polar bear is almost twice as big as the female. In the smaller bears, the sexual dimorphism isn't as pronounced, but in polar bears, it is very distinct. Most bears have these small rounded ears, again, to minimize heat loss, whereas a large ear, like an elephant, is to get rid of more heat. A large animal is going to generate a lot of heat. Well, where most bears live, it's cold, so they don't want to have a lot of heat loss. They have a large nose, and of course, the purpose of the nose is behind smell, probably the best smell of any mammal. Unlike other carnivores, they do not have whiskers. In that other carnivores have whiskers in order to sense their environment, particularly feeling their way around. Bears don't need that. They have excellent memories. They will oftentimes cache food or hide it so that they can come back later. And other characteristics as well: large jaw muscles, large skull, as well. Here's a picture of some bear skulls. You have a brown bear on the left and a polar bear on the right. You can see the brown bear's teeth are more suited for its omnivoric lifestyle, whereas the polar bear on the right, less so, because it's just more eating flesh. They spend most of their time eating, bears do, because they're so large. They have to be able to maintain their maintain homeostasis. It's a lot more caloric need. Pandas feed exclusively on bamboo and eat up to 15 hours a day, whereas more flesh-eating bears don't need to do that, but they still spend quite a bit of their time eating and will literally eat just about anything they can find. So a couple things behaviorally. Most bears are diurnal, though they will come out at night in certain instances. And again, they're solitary. They're the most non-social of all carnivores. They will live most of their life by themselves except to mate, and for the females, obviously, with their cubs, which they will usually keep around for 2 to 3 years until they're weaned, and then the cubs have to fend for themselves. And a lot of times then the female will have cubs right real quickly again. Females can have up to 4 or 5 sets of cubs in their lifetime. Males will often fight for territory and over mates, and it's really common to see males fighting, and even an older bear like the one on the right that has been in wars in its life and could tell tales of valor and truth. And it's just the way that it is for male bears. They will stay with the same female for often a couple of weeks and mate with that female. And because the female is ready to mate, the other males in the area can smell that. And so they will basically spend a couple of weeks just in straight fights. And so this is pretty common. And again, this is another symbolic kind of thing that you see a lot in film with the bears fighting each other. Bears have no predators except each other and us. And here's a picture of a clown in the forest that thinks he's big because he shot a bear. Bears are not a good food source for humans. I'm not against hunting, and I think that it is a viable way to have food and can be done in a right way. But bears shouldn't be a part of that, because most bears are not killed for their meat, but instead are killed for clown sport, like you see here. Most bears are not dangerous to humans. Unless they have become accustomed to humans. If they have become accustomed to humans, then they can be dangerous because, well, anytime you put a 1,000 plus pound carnivore in contact with little old us, we will lose every time. And so, with the exception of polar bears tend to be the most dangerous because they see humans less, oddly enough, and they will, because of their diet, they will actually smell and hunt humans. But for the most part, bears want to be left alone, and people should probably do that. Bears in this country in particular are making a comeback in parts of the country where they hadn't been for almost 100 years. And what they've found when they've come back is cities where there used to be forest. And so bears are having a hard time adapting, and probably it's us that are having a harder time adapting to them. And so, again, bears are usually not dangerous, though we probably don't want to go looking for them.